In this video, I'm going to present a guide to the most asked questions at Sonic Drive-Ins and help you plan really strong answers that will get you a job working at Sonic. So let's start with a question that comes up in every single interview that I've studied, and that is simply, what times could you work at Sonic? And if you don't have a good answer for this, they are probably not going to hire you. It's such an important question. So let's look at how you can actually answer this really well. The first thing you want to do is show that you're flexible. The hiring managers and store managers love flexibility. They want people that are flexible and can work around the shift patterns that they have in mind. Then you want to show that you actually meet Sonic's business needs. So imagine that you owned the store. What times would you be interested in? And if someone came to interview and said that they wouldn't work weekends and they're not interested in working evenings, then that's going to be a problem for you. So you probably wouldn't hire them. That's the way that they're going to think. The next thing you want to do is bring a can-do attitude to the interview. So when they ask about times, the more you can say yes, the more your chance of getting the job is. Then you also must think about avoiding the common mistake that people make, which is to list all of the times that they can't work. So they say, I can't do this time, and I can't do this time, and I can't do this time. And you're just basically giving them a list of reasons not to hire you. So don't spend ages talking about the times that you would rather not work, because it's very negative and it could cost you the whole job. You want to be focusing on what you can do instead. The next thing you have to make sure you do is that you have to prove that you take your job seriously. And by saying no to lots of times and giving lots of excuses of why you can't work at various times, they're basically wondering whether you actually value your job as much as you should. And then they question whether you're actually a good hire, and it probably all falls apart there. The next thing you want to do is think about the things that Sonic actually like to hear you can do. So let's look at some good phrases and some good ideas to get in your answer. So the first thing is really thinking about meeting the needs of the company. And you can say things like, I'm happy to work around the business's needs and the scheduling patterns that you have in mind. You could also think about working at busy times. So obviously they'll have more staff in when it's busy, and so you're more likely to work at those times. You want to think about being open to work evenings and weekends. They may ask you, can you work evenings and weekends? And the answer really has to be yes. Otherwise, you're going to massively reduce your chance of getting the job. Then the next thing you want to think about is, if you've got very, very good flexibility, the perfect answer is to say that you're able to work the full range of opening hours. And if you can say that, do, because it's the strongest answer. Though, of course, if you're a student and you do have really good reasons why you couldn't say that, then remember, they know that you're a student and they have agreed to interview you knowing that. So they know you've got some restrictions. That should be quite obvious. So you want to offer as much flexibility as you can, barring the fact that you're a student, for example. Then we can go on to another extremely important question, which is, what can you tell me about Sonic? And if you turn up to any interview not knowing about the company, it looks really bad. So definitely spend a little bit of time, and I'm talking 20 minutes, doing some really good research. Read the Wikipedia page for a start, read the Sonic web pages, the About Us, and just have a familiarity with the company. But the reason you're watching this video is to really help you prepare. And I've done lots of research, and I'll give you the real core facts that you can take to your interview. So when you're asked this question, start with the key facts, get the real basics in there. Then show you've actually bothered to do some research. So these facts are going to be a great starter, though do feel free to read more. And then ultimately, you want to have an impressive, confident answer. And if you can answer this really confidently with some good facts, it's really impressive and it will help you get the job. So let's run through the basic facts you can take to your interview. And we're going to start with the most basics to show that you've actually done the basics of the research. So you say that it's a fast food chain because that's what it is. You say that it's based around a drive-in model because that's what their business is all about. Really, their key offering is fast service. That's what made the company successful. They can provide service faster than other places. And their tagline is service with the speed of sound. And that ties into the kind of aviation and the basic introduction of air travel. That's traveling like almost at the speed of sound, that kind of idea. And their menu is based around American classics, so that's how you can talk about their menu. They have got car hops that jump between lots of different cars and deliver the meals very, very quickly, and they're famous for wearing roller skates. The company was founded by Troy Smith, who was a restaurant entrepreneur who tried lots of different models and finally found one that worked well. And so the real basic start of the Sonic business was 1953, where the Top Hat Drive-In opened, which later changed its name to be Sonic. The company operates mainly as a franchise, so you're not applying to Sonic itself, you're actually applying to an independent store. Maybe that you're actually applying to the person who actually owns it. They might be the person interviewing you, or you might be applying to one Sonic location that's part of a group of maybe 10 that are owned by a company. And so you're not applying to Sonic directly, you're probably applying to a franchise. And it's good to know which you're applying to as far as you can. The other thing you can remember for your interview is currently the business is owned by Inspire Brands. I would check who actually owns it because sometimes businesses are bought and sold. So currently it's Inspire Brands. The other fact that you can take with you is that they support education and they have donated a very large amount of money to educational causes, and that's a big part of their corporate social responsibility. So I would recommend perhaps you screenshot this page, take some notes, and come to your interview well prepared with the key facts. Let's move on to another super important question, which is tell me about yourself. Often at the start of the interview, they will ask you a nice settling in question like this. And you want to not waste this opportunity. You want to get in the key ideas. So I'm going to show you what you can say in answer to this question. So the first thing you talk about is your experience. Then you talk about your personal qualities. And then you talk about your interest in the role. So why you actually want to get this job. And it's very simple to plan an answer around this. So experience, qualities, interest. I'm going to tell you what you can talk about. So the first thing is think about all the relevant jobs you've had if you've had work experience, and then you just list the jobs that you've done and explain how they match up with working at Sonic. Then you focus most on any customer service experience and show that you can work well with customers. And then if you have any qualifications that you think would help you get the job here, mention the qualifications that you have. Then qualities, you say, I'm extremely reliable, I am highly professional, I'm a team player and work well with others, I work to maintain the highest standards of customer service. These are really great qualities that you can bring to your interview, and I would pick as many of those as you're confident in discussing. Then your interest, you could say something like, I'm passionate about good customer service and that you can deliver this working at Sonic. You can say that you love the Sonic brand as a customer, that you've been coming to Sonic for years and you really like their food and you really enjoy the experience, and so you want to join a company that you like. You could say that you enjoy working in food retail and that you've got previous experience, for example, working in companies like Sonic, and that's one of the reasons why you've chosen to apply here. So just go through your experience, list as many of those qualities as you can, and explain why you've actually applied for the job, and that'll give you a really strong answer. The next questions that come up are around strengths and weaknesses, so let's look at how you can actually answer these, and we'll start by looking at strengths. So strengths, you just pick a substantial strength, something that's actually really important for the job, and I will give you some examples. Bring something to back up that strength. So if you've got a reference, if you've got an example of a time that you used it, or if you have some piece of paper like a qualification that backs it up, that makes your answer so much stronger if possible. And then you want to be thinking about strengths that actually make an impact on Sonic. That's going to make customer service better. That's going to make you better at doing your job. These are the things you want to bring. So you could say, I believe that one of my major strengths is, say what your strength is, and then explain how you're going to use it as Sonic by saying, at Sonic, I will use this strength too, and say what you're actually going to do with this strength. Some ideas you could talk about is your customer service experience, if you have some. If you're a very proactive person and just jump in and take charge and make sure that everything's just perfect, that's something to mention. If you've got great attention to detail, or if you set yourself very high standards, these are all really great strengths to take to your interview. Or you can think up another strength that you have and that you're confident talking about. And so that's how you answer the strengths question. The next one, obviously, is weaknesses. And they may ask, what is your greatest weakness? And the way you answer this is by first picking a real weakness. So don't say something like, I'm just way too much of an absolute perfectionist, because you won't be taken seriously. The next thing you want to think about is what you could do to overcome your weakness. And I'll give you various suggestions of weaknesses you could have. And then you want to make sure that your weakness is completely irrelevant to Sonic, that it doesn't actually make any difference to your ability to do the job that you've applied for. So for example, if you said something like, I've been told that I have exceptionally bad body odor and that generates a large number of customer complaints, you're not going to get the job. Don't pick a weakness that actually matters. Some ideas about how you can actually answer this is to say, one weakness I'm aware of is, just mention it briefly, and then in the future I plan to, how are you going to overcome this weakness? Some weaknesses you could talk about is spelling long words. You're not likely to be writing large essays working at Sonic. Delegating, if you're not applying for a management role, you're probably not going to delegate anything at all, so it doesn't matter. You're probably not going to be giving large speeches to hundreds of people, so if public speaking is something that terrifies you, that's a good weakness to use. If you're not good at saying no, and if people ask you to do something, you tend to say yes, and you don't manage, if you get lots and lots of demands, you tend to say yes to them and it becomes overwhelming. That could be a weakness. And then if you're not great at math, then you could also use that because it's not something you're going to be doing very much. So that is some weaknesses that you could use for your interview. Then let's look at some quick fire questions, some simple questions that they often answer and what the right answers are. So they can ask, what can you work evenings and weekends? The answer going to have to be yes. If you say no, then you have to remember that they've asked this for a reason. They want to know if you can or can't. And if you say, I can't, then you're giving the wrong answer and you're going to have to be prepared for not getting the job if you say no. So I would really recommend saying yes. Otherwise, you are going to reduce your chance of getting the job. The next one, they do often ask, do you have reliable transportation? And so the ideal answer is yes. And then you want to follow it up by what your transportation actually is. And I'm going to go through what the kind of hierarchy, the order of the best answers. You could say you've got your own new transport would be the ideal answer. That might not be applicable to you. So that's like a new car that you own yourself. That would be great, but not everybody has that. You could say that you live within walking or cycling distance. So even if your car wasn't working or you didn't have one, you can get there quite easily. And walking is probably the most reliable. If you can't walk, you're not going to be able to do the job anyway. And so you could say that. Or if you're using public transport, the best answer is to say that you're using public transportation and that you've used it a lot in the past and it is reliable. And then you can think up a reasonable plan B. So for example, if the bus didn't turn up or the trains weren't running, how would you actually get there? Do you have someone that could give you a lift on that day and actually drive you there in the case of the transport hasn't turned up? And also you can say that you leave early. You don't take the latest train or the latest bus, you take the one before. So if that bus is late, you're still going to get in on time. That's how you answer the question. They may ask about skating if you're applying for a job that involves that. Really, if you are applying for a job that actually involves skating, then I would make sure that you can do it before your interview. If they ask it for a job that isn't what you think is something that would normally require skating, then you can give a slightly different answer. So obviously the best answer is to say, I'm a confident skater. That's the perfect answer. Failing that, you could say, I've recently practiced skating to prepare for this interview, and I'm now confident in skating. And the weakest answer that's still sort of okay, particularly if you're applying for a job that doesn't actually involve skating directly, I'm not yet fully confident in skating. However, if successful, I would ensure that I practice before starting. That would be the next best answer. And then here's some great ideas of questions to ask at the end of a Sonic interview. So you've got some questions ready to go. The first one, definitely ask is, can you tell me about the next steps in the hiring process you have here at Sonic? Show you're really interested in getting the job and you really want it by showing an eagerness to find out what happens next. You could ask them, what is your favorite thing about working at Sonic Drive-In, and sharing their enthusiasm for that aspect. You could say, is there anything that you would suggest a new hire do now to prepare for starting at Sonic? If successful, that's a good question to ask and commit to doing anything they suggest. You could ask, what are the characteristics of the best Sonic employees? And then link yourself and your characteristics to what the best employees are like. And then if possible, you ought to try and make up one on the day. So I hope this was helpful to you. Please post in the comments the questions that Sonic asked in your interview. And finally, thank you very much for watching.